Hey everybody, Shop Time with Dave back at you. I'm in the house tonight. It's a little warmer in here, and what I got in mind, we don't need to be out in the shop. So let's get to it. Here it is. I did a little bit of an unboxing whenever I got this kit. It's been probably a year and a half ago now. But I think it's time to get started on it. Got everything kind of laid out here. See the print. But the first thing we need to do is go through these castings and see if we can clean up some of the flashing on there or rough spots. We'll do that. With these guys right here. Got us a little needle file set. Each one of these has a little bit different profile to get into different angles and such. These are really good looking castings and they don't really need much cleanup. Maybe just a little bit on this parting line on this cylinder. Very little on the flywheel. Not much at all on this cast base. Now this base it's going to get machined on the bottom. So a lot of this roughness probably go away anyhow. But let's break it down with the needle files. Let me get you set on a tripod and let's get started. Yeah, as I said, these are really nice castings. There's very little to clean up on there. But I've picked out a file I like. We're just going to go in there and work at it. You know, I've heard people say this is therapeutic. Personally, I think it's just kind of annoying. The soft brass, it's working pretty easy. They also make this kit in aluminum. It's a little bit cheaper. But I thought the brass on cast iron would be a little prettier looking when it was done. It's not much difference in price. I don't know, 15 or maybe even $10. It's not much. Probably like 30 people in the comments right now going, you can't use a file like that. I say if it works, it's the right way. I don't really know what brand of files these are or anything. It's just something I got off of Amazon at a pretty reasonable price. I think we got that spoke cleaned up already. Looks pretty good from here. This really nice casting. I was really impressed with this, especially at the price point. I mean, what was this thing? $130, something like that, for all these intricate castings, complete drawings and assembly instructions. I mean, honestly, I don't even know how you can make money on that. Maybe it's not about the money for once. Maybe somebody just wants to see somebody else get some enjoyment. So I decided that before I move on to a big project like building a locomotive, that I need to build up some skill set on a little kit like this. A locomotive project, if I ever actually get to it, because that's going to be a really big project. It's going to take a very long time, and it's going to be really expensive. But I need to definitely hone some skills, definitely mill skills. For sure, the vast majority of my machining experience is on a lathe. A lot of times that that experience in itself is just production work, loading it apart and letting it run. Yeah, I definitely want to do that locomotive project. I think it'd be awesome, but it's just, it may be on my skill level. And there's so many other projects that need to be done that are things that actually need to be done, where the locomotive project is more of a want. Alrighty. From what I can see, but there we go for now. Let's get a look at this cylinder. I haven't gone through the drawing quite yet, but I'm pretty sure this is going to have to get decked off on both of these sides. So this parting line, I'm not even going to worry about there. But I am going to worry about it right here. I don't think this side's going to get machined at all. These files are so small, it's hard for me to maneuver my big fat hands on them. Maybe I ought to have this locked down in a vise out in the shop, but it's warm in here. It's really cold out there. It's starting to get a little late. Not worth trying to keep the shop heated all the time anyway, just when you're out there working. So it's been a long time ago now, but I still think about it from time to time. I had this idea to do at a steam show, where you get one of these kits and have the guys in the machine shop machine the parts and fit them up and put the model together throughout the course of the show. And then at the end of the show, when it's completed and running, raffle it off to the patrons of the show. But where I'm at here in Ohio, there just isn't a show that's set up for that. Most of you've watched me long enough now. You know I'm a pretty big fan of Rollog out in Minnesota. I think this would definitely be a doable task for that show. They got a pretty good machine shop set up out there. And we're starting to get it blended in. Starting to get a little bit of some dust down here on the drawing. Now this isn't a fun step. At least it's not fun for me, but it's the first step, and it's a step that's got to be done. I don't think I'm going to be able to take much more of this. We'll start filing out the details of the casting. I think we better call that good enough before I take too much. Yeah, there's a little bit down in that groove it needs taken out. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, that's coming in. I really have no idea how long this video is going to take or how many parts it's going to be, because I've never really done a project like this before. Guess we'll learn together, huh? Now here's a little bit more. Therapeutic. Makes my arms tired. Oh yeah. I think there we go. Let's call that piece done. Yeah, it's coming in. I don't think we have to worry about this gating. I think this whole front's going to get pretty well machined off one way or another. Just kind of taking off the rough edges. Sometimes I have to move it around and get the light to hit it just right. Coming together. That flashing's starting to come off of there. I suppose a lot of people just would have left it the way it was and gone with it. Nothing wrong with that. Just trying to hone my skills a little bit. They say that you should never stop learning. Oh yeah. Sometimes I ask myself, why I put the effort into making these videos, because I'm really getting nothing back out of it. And sometimes it gets pretty frustrating. It's not too hard to spend 2 or 3 hours just putting the separate video clips together, cutting them down and making something interesting out of them. But in the end, I keep doing it because I hope that somebody younger out there comes across it and realizes, hey, I can do that too. Or at least get some inspiration to start on their own project. I always liked working on projects, really my whole life. But that said, I also faced a lot of negativity. What are you wasting your time for? What are you going to go do that for? I guess to build my skill level. If you don't try, you're never going to learn anything, you know? You don't just automatically know everything. You don't automatically have the skills to go build an engine. It takes time and practice. You're gonna make mistakes along the way. And we're just starting on this, and I bet I make a mistake somewhere. I guess when you make a mistake, it probably costs you a little bit of time and a little bit of money. It hurt your pride a little bit, but outside of that, you learn from it, and you know not to do that again. At least hopefully. Well, I believe I've gone all the way around this, and I'm pretty sure I've got it about as good as it's going to get. See if I can open up this baggie and look at these castings in here. They may not need anything. What's this? I guess this is the back cylinder head. Got a little bit of a gate there. Doesn't look like I need to do much of anything to it. It looks good to go. Some crosshead braces. I don't see anywhere that needs any file action. Maybe just a little bit on this end. Counterweight. Looks pretty good. Front cylinder head. Looks nice to me. I tell you, I'm really impressed with this kit. There we go. We got some flash on this connecting rod. We'll have to work on that. Getting quite the little pile of chips here, ain't I? Don't suppose all you guys is wives will let you go out in the kitchen and do this, huh? But there's probably worse things you could be doing. I think it's going to get pretty interesting when we go to figuring out ways to fixture all these little parts in the mill. Poke some holes in them and such. Should make for some interesting fixturing. Well, there we go. I think we're ready to move on to something else. Everything's filed and cleaned up. Now I got to decide what piece I want to work on first. Calls our base casting here item number 1. But we should start at the beginning. Flywheel's part number 3. We could start on that. Looks relatively straightforward to run. I think the hardest part of doing the flywheel is figuring out how we're going to hold it in the lathe. Then there's the cylinder, item number 2. Should be some interesting things to do with that. I can see already that there is some really interesting setup work to be done. Out in the chilly garage, we're ready to get started on actually making chips. You guys have probably watched me long enough to know that I like to make a copy of the drawing so I can make notes, or it can get dirty and torn up and we got a good copy left in the house. So that's what I've done. We got some notes here to go off of. The first thing I want to do is start out here on the mill and put a 1/4-inch hole down through the middle. A lot of you would probably say, well, why don't you start on the lathe and put a hole in the lathe? And I suppose that's a viable option. But in this situation, we got some draft lines here, and I think I can get a more true hole through it and line up easier on the mill, and it'll make us have a little easier time on the lathe. So let's get started. What I've done is put a 1/2-inch drill into the mill backwards. And that'll give me something to line up off of visually. As good as what this casting is, I still think it would be awful hard to run an indicator on that and know that it would be perfect. So I think visual is our best way to go, because basically what I'm aiming for is visually pleasing at this point. Try to go by feel a little bit as well. Let's lock the table. All right, first step, I got a center drill in here. We're going to go ahead and pop a little starting hole in there for us. It's not going to take much. Okay, drawing's calling for 15/64. I'm going to start with a 7/32, which is a little bit smaller than that, and then we'll step it up to the 15/64, which comes out to 2/34. Okay, our 7/32 is in there. We could do a quick check. Just to verify 218. Want to verify that it is the right size in case you pulled it out of the wrong place, you know what I'm saying? I'm choosing to go with this other 7/32 because it's a little higher quality drill than what I have in 15/64. We're through. Got the 15/64 in here now, and I looked at it. It is a little beat up, so I'm glad I went that other route. Okay, we're through. Back to the drawing. 1/4-inch ream through. So I set up a 1/4-inch reamer, threw it in a collet. Hopefully the collet will drive it a little straighter than what a drill chuck will. We'll end up with a nice straight hole through there. Well, that didn't take too long. Looks pretty good. All right, before I pull it out of this setup, I want to talk about it for a second because I forgot to do it earlier. But we have our flywheel sitting on a couple parallels in here, and that's keeping it nice and flat, or at least as flat as what we can get it as corresponding to how well the casting is. Then we have a V block to keep it from wanting to wobble around so much, and the V block is sitting on a couple more parallels just to bring it up. So let's pop it out of here. Grab our deburring tool. Just make sure there's no fuzzies on there. Looks pretty good. Next step, got our little flywheel. I've made up a little mandrel here. The reason why I went this direction with it is there's always going to be some run out in your chuck. Unless you got an adjustable chuck, which I do not. And I decided it was too much effort to try to put that great big heavy 4-jaw on here. So by machining this little mandrel, we know it is true to the axis of the lathe no matter what. Then we just slide the little guy on there. Tighten up our nut. That'll be plenty tight enough. So the only thing we need to do on the lathe is true up this face, clean up the outside edge. Shine that face up real nice. Now, if we look at the drawing, it shows this being machined as flat, and I don't agree with that personally. Because I believe if you're going to ever put a belt on here, which wouldn't be a very big belt, you got to have a crown on that pulley. This is kind of a not so fun part. This is going to take a lot of cranking on my part. Basically, all we're going to do is come in here and clean this up. I have the compound set at 2 degrees. That should be more than enough crown for just playing around. I went ahead and went all the way across just to kind of take off some of this gate. Save us a little time when we get to the other side. No big deal. Take the file, I want to break the edge a little bit. Now we'll take our little whirly gig, break the inside edge. Rinse and repeat on the other side. And stop it real quick and check it, make sure it cleaned up everywhere. A little bit of an inclusion there where the gate is, or was. The next thing we're going to do is use our compound and put the other side of the crown in. And basically I'm just going to do this by eye, and when it looks like it's pretty close to in the center, we're going to call it good. pretty close. We got a little bit to clean up here. That cleaned it up all the way, except for we moved our crown over a little bit. Let's deburr this. Flip it back around and do the other side again. I think I've reached the point where I shouldn't mess with it anymore. I think we're going to call that good. So the next thing to do is we got to put a little set screw in here. So I'll show you how we're going to set that up. Let's start with this, I don't know if you can see it, 20-degree angle block. We're going to set it down in the vise. I got a square 5C collet block, 5C collet. We're using our same mandrel from the lathe. We're just going to set her right in here. I got a stub carbide drill in here. I wanted to use a center drill, but I don't have one on hand that's long enough or skinny enough to get in there. But this stub drill should put a nice little spot for us. I'm going to take the flashlight and cheat so I can see a little better. Bring that down. Just by eyes, plenty good enough. Just a set screw. That looks lined up pretty good this way. Looks like it's going to clear. I mean, it's tight. And really, the only thing we're going to do is come down and just put a little spot. Just something so when we actually go to drill, we got something to start with so it doesn't walk and bend and break. Here goes nothing. Just enough to get us started. All right, I've switched our drill out to a 3/32, just a little bit smaller than our tap drill size. I sped our spindle up. Got the number 38 drill in here that the drawing's specifying. Let's finish it out. We got our hole in it, so now we need to tap it. Drawing calls for a 540 tap. I don't know if we can focus on that. There we go, 540. Let's put some tap juice on it. Got the Molly D. If this is good enough for stainless steel, it ought to be good enough for brass. I'm just going to do this by hand. We don't need to break any taps. Pretty hard to see in there, but I can see some threads, and we got some chips. All right, back in the house where it's a little bit warmer, I wanted to show you a couple things. One, you can see the tap is all the way through. And two, our little mandrel, here he is, just made out of a 1/2-inch bolt. You can see where we drilled and got into it a little bit. It's exactly what it was supposed to do. Be sacrificial. I don't know if I brought this up sooner, but when I turned this down, I put a little undercut in there so the flywheel could seat all the way up against this face here. And the last little thing in there is to show you that the set screw is in. So we'll set this guy right here. First completed part. Well, this video is getting pretty long, so I think we're going to cut it there. And hope you're enjoying this little series on building the PM Research #3 steam engine. Hope you come back for more. Thanks for watching. Shop Time with Dave, signing off.